When an elephant weighing about 3,500 kilograms gives birth to a 90-kilogram baby, it's about 1/40th of her body weight. Compare that to when a 60-kilogram woman gives birth to a 3-kilogram baby. Since that's actually 1/20th of her body weight, a human baby is, relatively speaking, twice the size of a newborn elephant, which only confirms what every human mom has always suspected. Giving birth would be so much easier if we were like polar bears. Why bother waking up if, relatively speaking, our baby was the same size as a polar bear cub? A half-ton polar bear gives birth to a half-kilo baby. That would be like us giving birth to a baby smaller than a golf ball. No wonder polar bears don't bother waking up. Disposable diapers have revolutionized baby care. Now they're so popular that the average baby goes through an impressive 3,000 diapers a year. That means in America alone, every single day, babies fill 7,500 tons of diapers. So every day, America's getting a pile of dirty diapers as tall as a 10-story building. Well, it seems that human dads may be pre-programmed to find babies cute and cuddly. Scientists have found that we respond warmly to certain features associated with a baby's face. They have a large forehead, big eyes, and a small nose. Strangely enough, we can now see these same features in one of the most popular toys in the world. Originally, teddy bears looked reasonably lifelike. They had a small forehead, beady little eyes, and a large snout. But over the years, as we looked for bears that were cuter, we selected toys that were more and more baby-like, with large forehead, big eyes, and a small, cute nose. Every human male has the potential to be an extreme dad. After all, in his lifetime, he'll produce an incredible 2,000 billion sperm cells. And since it only takes one sperm cell to fertilize an egg, in theory, every time a man makes love to a woman, he releases enough sperm to fertilize every woman in Europe. Theoretically, that means the whole world's population could be reproduced in just one day by only 23 men. It seems there's a chemical in helispit that acts on those receptor pathways in the brain that affect memory. Chemical companies are hoping that their new drug could help reduce the symptoms of memory loss for the 4 million sufferers of Alzheimer's disease in America alone. That's why, when it comes to venom, the box jellyfish really is. The answer lies in its incredible fur. Take away those spots, and you're left with the easily recognizable shape of a hunting cat. But if your fur is exactly the same color as your environment, you blend in perfectly. The trouble is, the snow leopard's environment isn't all one color. And that's why the leopard has its spots. They disrupt the outline of the leopard, making it blend into the background. It's been calculated that if there's an average of 3.7 children per household, Santa's reindeer would have to visit about 1,300 houses every second. They'd have to travel about 111 million miles, giving them an average speed of 3.6 million miles an hour. In England, the city of London is home to over 7 million people. This may seem crowded, but if the area of the city was divided into tennis courts, there would be one person per court. But if you travel to Hong Kong, the living conditions are really crowded. While the population is similar to London, the amount of available land is so small that each tennis court would have to hold 25 people. Monarch butterflies really are the ultimate endurance athletes. Some individual butterflies can travel up to 3,000 miles. That works out to be a journey of about 150 million body lengths. If we tried running the equivalent distance, we'd have to travel around the Earth 11 times. For thousands of years, humans were having lots of children, but losing many of them before they turned 5. So, by the year 1500, there were probably about 460 million people on the planet. Then, along came the Industrial Revolution and the advancement of science and technology. The death rate started falling, and our population started growing. Our swarm has already become 12 times bigger than at the year 1500, and is predicted that by the turn of the next century, we'll be a swarm 11 billion strong. Early last century, the first wave of invaders left their home in Argentina by stowing away on ships bound for Europe. The army of ants wiped out native species as they advanced. Now, there are billions of Argentine ants in millions of nests, and they're all genetically related. That's why these ants are #1 in the countdown. Their empire stretches 3,700 miles, all the way from Italy to Spain. It's the biggest super colony in history. The closest thing to a human super colony occurs once every 144 years in India. Return to their homes, but the invasion of the Argentine ants will never end. This swarm is sweeping the globe, even to remote islands in the Pacific. For when it comes to swarming, there can be no doubt that the Argentine ant really is. We'd have to have ears that measured 1/3 the length of our body. That's an awful lot of ears. If we were like the fennec fox, we'd have ears nearly twice the size of our feet. Actually, we're all getting a little foxier because ears keep growing with age. A group of Russian scientists measured the differences in length of people's left and right ears. They concluded that if your left ear is slightly longer than your right, it indicates you might have analytical abilities associated with the sciences. If your right ear is longer, you might have a tendency towards the creative aspects of the arts. The theory is the difference in ear length is thought to reflect which side of the brain is dominant. How would you like to have foot-long canine teeth growing out of the roof of your mouth? An orthodontist could make a lot of money correcting that overbite. While our canines may not be as impressive as a Babirusa, they're still the biggest teeth in our mouth. But compared to the rest of our primate cousins, our canine teeth are very small indeed. Unlike the jacana, we'll never be able to trot across lilies because our feet are just too small. Your average foot is only 15% of the total length of your body. But if we had feet like the jacana, they'd be well over 3 feet long. That's an incredible 60% of your body length. Things with feet that size can be really scary. But no matter how much iron you pumped, you'd still never bulk up enough to match the fiddler crab. That's because our arms usually make up about 6% of our body weight. If we were fiddler crabs, we'd look very different. Our arm would be 10 times bigger. No wonder the fiddler crab has trouble carrying around that huge appendage that weighs 65% of its body weight. It's not hard to see why these animals were once thought to be monsters. Imagine swimming next to an animal that's the same size as a truck and semi-trailer. That's nearly 60 feet of squid. So it's no surprise that this giant has the largest eye on the planet. The squid's eye has a 15-inch diameter, making it about the size of a large beach ball. Our puny eyeball is only 1 inch across, which is smaller than a golf ball. Imagine meeting a human as tall as a giraffe. He'd be 3 times taller than the average man. That's a towering 19 feet high. Every basketball coach in the world would love a player tall enough to lean on the backboard. If we were built like giraffes, we'd have another neat trick. With a 20-inch tongue, we'd have no trouble cleaning our ears. But the giraffe's most extreme body part is its neck. Incredibly, they have only 7 bones in their neck, just like humans. But their bones are much, much bigger. Imagine if your neck bones were 10 inches long. Then you'd really be able to stick your neck out. But living with a 6-foot-long neck isn't easy. To turn silk into a trap, an orb web spider releases a single thread into the wind. When the free end catches hold, the spider cinches up the silk and attaches the thread to the starting point. From this bridge, the spider lays down the basic support structure for the web, before finishing it off with a spiral of the sticky silk used to trap its prey. But one extreme spider prefers to knit a portable web. Given the shrew's frantic lifestyle, it's no surprise that it needs vast amounts of energy to survive. Weight for weight, a shrew burns through 100 times more oxygen than an elephant, because a lot of energy goes into just staying warm. If a shrew died, it would cool down in minutes because it quickly loses heat over its relatively huge surface area. Compare that to a dead elephant that might take days to cool down. To put it another way, if a shrew had the slow metabolic rate of an elephant, it would need fur nearly a meter thick to keep warm. But the shrew doesn't have big fur. It has a big appetite to power its extraordinary metabolism. One kind of shrew has to eat up to 3 times its own weight in food every 24 hours. That means to keep pace, an adult human would have to eat 1,920 hamburgers each day. Don't let its tiny size fool you, for when it comes to predation, the shrew really is the... That's because when we encounter something that smells bad, molecules have evaporated off the noxious substance and floated through the air up into your nose. At the top of your nasal passages is a patch of special neurons about the size of a postage stamp. They're covered in hair-like projections that catch the odor molecules and then trigger the nerves that tell your brain there's a smell in the air. Our ability to sniff out stinks is very important. Each day, the average human toots the trouser trumpet about 10 times and produces about 1.5 liters of digestive gases. Imagine if you could collect the gases produced by all the people in the world in one day. You'd have enough gas to fill 13 blimps. And if you analyze the composition of our digestive gases, you'd find that the main ingredients are all odorless. The smell comes from the tiniest traces of sulfur. Onions and garlic are full of sulfur. Other foods like beans and cabbage are broken down by bacteria that produce sulfurous stenches. And that's why when it comes to passing gas, you are what you eat. If you want breath like a hooker sea lion, simply stop brushing your teeth. Scraps of food will start decomposing in your mouth. Bacteria will flourish and start releasing the sulfurous gases that are the prime cause of bad breath. Your feet smell because of bacteria that feed on sweat. Each hard-working foot is covered in 250,000 sweat glands, which can produce about 1/2 liter of sweat each day. That means in your lifetime, your feet will pump out enough sweat to fill a swimming pool. That's about 25,000 liters of sweat. Offensive bathroom odors were ranked in 4th place by 38% of respondents. Then came the smell of dirty diapers. Rotten eggs got 47% of the vote. But the clear winner, according to 60% of all people. Imagine how much better we could see in the dark if we had eyes the size of melons. Fortunately, our normal-sized eyes do help us see in the dark. In low light levels, our pupils open wide to let in the maximum amount of light, just like a tarsier. But as any photographer knows, big pupils can cause big problems. We've all seen photographs of people with spooky red eyes. That's because the camera flash has reflected off the red blood vessels feeding the back of the eyeball. So some cameras have a red eye reduction feature where the flash goes off twice. The first flash causes the pupils to contract. The actual photograph is taken on the second flash when the pupils are small, so there's no red eye reflection in the picture. Because we rely on our eyes for most of our sensory input, we often forget just how important the sense of touch can be. The touch receptors in our skin can provide information about things like pressure, heat, cold, and pain. Touch receptors collect information and fire it along nerves up to the sensory cortex of the brain. Scientists have been able to map which areas of the brain receive information from the body. Because our touch receptors are concentrated in some areas more than others, different amounts of the brain are devoted to our body's sense of touch. We'd look very different if you made a model of our body in proportion to the amount of brain power dedicated to the touch receptors. We'd have enormous lips, tongue, and fingertips because these are some of the most touch-sensitive parts of the body. That's because when it comes to smell, in the back of our nose, there are about 40 million smell receptors, covering an area of about 13 square centimeters. If we wanted to smell things as well as a dog, we'd need a much bigger nose. The dog's huge snout has much more room for the receptor cells. A German Shepherd can have 2 billion smell receptors covering an area 10 times larger than our nose. A dolphin uses a large fatty organ in its forehead to transmit a beam of the ultrasonic pulses, much like a submarine uses sonar. Like sonar pings, the sound waves will bounce back off the diver. The beauty of ultrasound is that some of the ultrasonic waves can pass right through the skin. The beam may then reflect back off the bones or internal organs, resulting in a number of different echoes. Some scientists believe that these echoes are processed in the dolphin's brain to form a 3D image of the diver. Pompeii's disc is actually a high-frequency loudspeaker. It fires carefully selected wavelengths of ultrasound into the air like a searchlight. The column of air particles actually works to convert the high-frequency waves into sounds we can hear. Focus the spotlight on someone's head, and you can beam them their own personal music. Imagine if we had the senses of a shark. We'd have incredible hearing. How would you like to be able to hear your food cooking 1,500 meters away? Your super sense of smell would let you track your food from nearly 1 kilometer. Your eyes would be 10 times more sensitive to light, and you'd have an unbelievably keen sense of touch. From a distance of 3 meters, you'd be able to detect enough vibrations to build up a 3-dimensional picture of your lunch. Possible for us to imagine how it perceives the world. Which is why there can be no doubt that when it comes to super senses, the shark really is. In the next 5 seconds, you will lose more than 4,000 skin cells. It's perfectly natural. It's part of your body's defense system for you to shed more than 1 million dead skin cells every hour. But it means that in just 1 day, the amount of skin shed by the world's human population would fill a 4-story house. 80% of the dust you see floating in a sunbeam is actually flakes of dead skin. And this is food for the dust mites that live in your bed. Just like any animal, what goes in must come out. And what comes out of a dust mite is a pellet of digested skin. Each day, about 20 of these tiny pellets join the piles of dust mite carcasses and cast off skins that accumulate in your bed. So tonight, when you go to bed, take another look at your pillow. If it's more than a couple of years old, about 10% of its weight will be from dust mites and their droppings. Imagine if you had feet like a gecko. Walking up the wall would be no trouble with gecko feet. If you take a close look, you'd see your feet were covered in tiny ridges. Use a microscope and you'd see each ridge was coated with what looked like tiny scales, but are actually more than 150,000 tiny hairs, the ends of which are much less than 1/1,000,000th of a meter wide. That's small enough to interact with the molecular structure of the surface, which is why geckos can stick to anything. Imagine if you could belly flop like a flying snake. How would you like to be able to glide 100 times your body length? That could be well over 150 meters, or the length of not 1, but 2 jumbo jets. When you're flying straight and level, the force of gravity causes your body to have a certain weight. But when you come out of a dive, as the plane changes direction, your body keeps moving in the opposite direction. So a pilot actually weighs 4 times more than usual when he pulls 4 Gs. The main effect of G-forces is on the flow of blood. When pulling out of a dive, the G-forces push the blood to the lower part of the body, reduce the flow of blood to your eyes and brain, and you'll first lose your vision and then your consciousness. Not a good thing to happen in an airplane. Every time we eat, we're not only feeding ourselves, but the billions of bacteria that live on our teeth. The bacteria can cause tooth decay because they turn sugars into acids, and the acids eat into our tooth enamel. Our best weapon to fight back is our spit. Saliva is the body's natural mouthwash, And the best way to get the saliva glands pumping is to chew. That's why millions of people now defend their teeth. If we were like the animal that's number 9 in the countdown, we'd look very different. How would you like to date a guy who has eyes that stick out 1 meter from each side of his head? You'd have a unique way of looking at the world if you were How would you like to be able to glide more than 200 times your body length? That would be like flying the length of an aircraft carrier. Being able to fly is a huge advantage. To create this strange primate, you need to take the head of a rodent and the ears of a bat, add them to the tail of a fox, the hands of a witch, and the body of a monkey. Mix them together, and you get the oddest primate of them all, the aye-aye, a bizarre nocturnal lemur from the island of Madagascar. Fish. Inside a lure suspended from its forehead are millions of light-producing bacteria. It's the bait to lure any fish in the neighborhood, including the tiny animal that makes the anglerfish number 1 in the countdown. Only the females go fishing. The males are so different that for decades, scientists thought they were a separate species altogether. A male anglerfish is 40 times smaller than the female. He has tiny teeth, no lure, and no guts. If he's to survive, he has to catch a female and give her the ultimate love bite. As soon as the male grabs hold of his mate, his body starts to degenerate. His jaws fuse into the female's skin, and soon so do his blood vessels. The male anglerfish is number 1 in the countdown because for many years, scientists thought females just had strange lumps growing out of them. The male was so odd that nobody realized that it was once a fish. It had become nothing more than a bump of reproductive organs, on call to fertilize eggs at the whim of the female. But it's hard to imagine what life must be like as an anglerfish. How would you like to have a partner that clings to you for life? A parasite that sucks the very blood from your veins? Yet this strange relationship is fitting for a very strange animal. So it's no wonder then that when it comes to oddities, the anglerfish really is